Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. Hey Jason, why isn't the Zercher Squat a popular lift even though it has lots of carryover? Thanks, bro. Honestly, I know a lot of coaches who hate the Zercher. They think it's stupid. They don't recommend it to anybody. And I know coaches who love the Zercher Squat. So it's a couple things to look at with that. Number one, there's a lot of coaches who do not like the Zercher Squat. I don't program it for all of my lifters. I program it for some of my lifters. It's great for variations for guys who don't have a lot of equipment. You know, guys who don't have a bunch of specialty bars, I do like to use the Zercher for them sometimes. Any of my guys who have to grapple, right? If I have guys who do BJJ, sports like that, right? It's a real good lift, and I'll have them do it. I'll have them do it because it carries over really, really well to their sport. But when it comes to overall squatting, I think a Zercher without a harness doesn't carry over particularly well. It can, but it feels like it puts so much stress on the back that we don't get any real benefit from the reduced weight. You know, I mean, people are almost better doing a front squat at that point. But really, even then, a lot of times I'd rather have them do a safety bar squat. You know, if we're wanting to build the upper back and everything a little bit more. The Zercher isn't always the best for the carryover if you don't have a harness. So it really varies. It's nice for some variation though. And it's certainly a good exercise, and I think it has its uses. I'm not one of those who think it's a great exercise. I think it's an okay lift, and it can have its place in training for the right athletes. And I do use it for those athletes. Most of my clients don't do it. And I think one of the things though, if you want to look at one of the biggest factors, why don't more people do it? Well, it's hard. I mean, let's be honest, Zercher squats are hard. I've seen you do them, Jerry, so I know that you do the Zercher squat, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not an easy lift. And squats are already hard enough. You know, it's funny, like I hate squats. Squats are hard. People are like, well, you squat all the time, you're in Bulgaria, and you're trying to break a squat record. That's why I squat so much. I don't enjoy any squatting that I do. I don't like it at all. It's not fun. And anyone who says, no, I don't agree, squatting's fun, it's like, you're not that strong yet. Wait till you start getting real weight on the bar, then your opinion's going to change on that. There's nothing fun about a squat. A heavy squat, real weight, or even moderate weight for a lot of reps. You start getting to 300 plus for 20 reps. That's not fun either. Zerchers are harder. They're even harder. I think that's a big factor too. It's about that perceived exertion, you know. And I have some of my guys, you know, oh coach, it hurts my forearms. You know, this lift sucks, you know. And I get a couple who do that, and it's like, well, you know, suck it up, sweetheart. But if you think about the general person who doesn't have that sort of drive, they don't like ultra difficult lifts, that's going to reduce popularity. I mean, look how hard it has been historically to even get people to do regular squats and conventional deadlifts, right? They finally started getting more popular overall, but for a long time, all the guys chasing hypertrophy, oh, we don't need to do these lifts, they suck. They didn't want to do them because they're hard. Zercher squat's even harder. That's a big factor in its popularity. All right, next question. Currently working with a squat rack I can't bolt to a floor. Is reverse band a viable option for dynamic effort work? Oh, now that's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. Now that I'm put in the position of having to think about it, I'm going to say yes with some caveats. All right, when we start adding different types of contrast weight, different sorts of accommodating resistance, they have a learning curve. Speed work has a learning curve. And here's the thing that when you start messing with band versus chains, you notice the timing is different. Particularly on the speed bench, the timing is different when you use straight weight versus band versus chains. Okay. The reverse bands are probably going to have their own timing. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, well, it should just be like the chains. Well, no, because chains are linear. Okay. Bands, when we go against bands, it's an exponential strength curve. I'm going to predict that pulling in the other direction, it is not going to be a linear curve either. You know, you're not going to have to deal with the overspeed effect and everything, right? But I think it's going to be a case of they're going to unload a lot, and then it's going to get super heavy right at the top. Because with bands, normally when you're pushing against bands, if they're set up in the right position, you're hitting almost the full weight of the bands by 50%, right? So let's say you're running 100 pounds of bands. You probably have 10 pounds at the bottom. You have 90 pounds of bands probably by the time you're midway, and then it only gains a little bit more over the last half of the rep. When you do reverse bands, it's probably going to be the exact opposite. I'm going to predict you're probably going to have, let's say you do 100 pounds of reverse bands. You have to figure out how to tune your speed work for this, by the way. That is probably going to take 90 pounds off halfway through still. Then all of a sudden, bam, it's going to go from, taking 90 pounds off to no weight off in the last 8 inches, right? So the weight is going to get really heavy real fast at the top. That can create some interesting effects with speed work. Like I almost feel like, that might be worth messing with just for the different effect in and of itself, right? Especially when you're going to have that ultra aggressive lockout. It's going to be like chains, but it's going to be an exponential weight reduction instead of a linear. You're going to have to learn the timing of it. It's probably going to be tricky to learn. If you can learn the timing of it, I would say, yeah, it's probably very viable. Probably very viable. But the timing is going to be very different. And it's going to feel very different than bands or chains do. Just like it does when you do maxes against reverse bands. So I'd say give it a go. All right, next question. What do you think of chest, back, shoulders, leg split? It sounds ridiculous. Sounds ridiculous. Like, I don't know, are you asking me like chest and back one day, then shoulders and legs on another? Why don't you just do upper lowers like most serious athletes do? What do you see me do? Upper lower. 4-day upper lower. What do you see my clients do who are jacked and strong? 4-day upper lower. I would say one of the few times I would deviate away from that would be for specific lifting for movement patterns, right? Like having a bench, a squat, and a deadlift day with associated accessory work for all of them. I'd consider that possibly as a 3-day for some people. But my question becomes, why are you throwing shoulders in with legs? Why can't you just do upper lower? Shoulders are going to be used on your chest and back day. Like, what are you really doing for shoulders that's not already in your chest and back work? Maybe some overhead pressing or some laterals. All right, your chest and back has already worked your delts and traps. You've worked them on those days. So just work them on those same days. Add them together. It's not a big deal. Just go upper lower. It's very successful. It's what I generally promote. It's what I do. And I've said before, I'd consider programming to where people do a lift based for 3 days a week. People who aren't going to do 4 could make sense, right? You could do it that way. But in this case, it sounds like you just want to do a lot more shoulder work. It's probably not necessary. Like, if you feel your shoulders need that much extra work, finish your upper body days with some extra side raises. They don't need to throw them in on your legs day. Right? You don't need to do that. Just do upper lower. It works great. It works fine. It has built many elite athletes in dozens of different sports, including bodybuilding, actually, now that it comes down to it, which is not really a sport. A lot of guys have gotten pretty big and jacked doing even that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.